Morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Great, thank you. So thank you very much first to KSNRE for organising this webinar and for the excellent and for our excellent first speakers for taking time out of their busy schedules. I'm here to talk to you about the RE100 and just to update you on what's been happening with the campaign. Next slide, please. And next slide, please. So I'm speaking to you from the UK, where I'm proud to say we have just reached our 54th consecutive day without using coal, which is exceptional for a country that, like Korea, we built our economy on coal. And now we've celebrated our first month ever without using any coal to generate power. Change is happening, and it's happening very, very fast. And we are seeing similar changes happening around the world. So RE100 is one of the movements that is helping to create that change, and in particular, the members of RE100 helping to create that change. RE100 currently has 236 members, and we will be announcing more members at the end of the week. The movement continues to grow. Now, what those companies have committed to, they've committed to using 100% renewable electricity for their entire global operations. Now, they've not said they'll do this tomorrow, although some of them have very, very ambitious targets. We'll see some announcements of achieving 100% in 2020. But the rules of RE100 is to set a 100% goal by, at the very latest, 2050, with interim goals of 30% by 2040, 60% by 2040, and then 100% by 2050. So it's a reasonable trajectory for reaching this ambitious target. Together, these companies represent electricity demand equivalent to that of Indonesia. So together, RE100 has greater electricity demand than the 20th largest electricity consumer on the planet. So very much increasing in influence, as well as the direct use of electricity. The next slide, please. Next slide, please. One of the questions we were asked at the beginning of this terrible pandemic was, okay, what will happen to RE100? Is this just a fair weather commitment that people will drop as soon as things become difficult? Well, we are delighted to say that RE100 continues to grow. At the start of the pandemic, we were a group of 221 members. We are now a group of 236 members. And as I say, continuing to grow with some of the world's largest corporations. Next slide, please. What is interesting is most of the growth is happening, or a large increasing proportion of our growth is happening in the Asia Pacific region, with 40% of our new members welcomed in Asia Pacific, with that growth focused in China, Japan, Taiwan, and Australia. I want to quickly say why 100% is so important. First of all, 100% leaves no room for doubt. Everybody in your organization, when you have a 100% target, knows that you mean business. If you have a 50% target or a 40% target, means that 50% or 60% of your organization think it doesn't apply to them. If it's a bit difficult, it's somebody else's problem. 100% leaves no room for doubt. It means you're very serious. And that seriousness has power. We're finding that policymakers, government leaders are seeing businesses making these commitments, and they're taking it very, very seriously and are responding with appropriate legislation to enable those companies to meet 100%. So it's really important to state this isn't about companies just setting a target where it's easy to do it. This is companies making the impossible possible by setting an ambitious target, a really ambitious target, and showing the world they are really serious. And that is what opens the doors. That is what changes the legislation. And that's what creates the future. That's why leadership is so important. The next slide, please. And we are seeing change in legislation. Mukund will talk about Europe in a short while, but I think it's important to stress there is also leadership in Asia. Taiwan, one of the more advanced markets in the region. I could also talk about Vietnam and Singapore as advanced markets in comparison with in the Asia Pacific region. Taiwan has a system of TRECs that create credible tracking of renewable electricity. Power purchase agreements are now possible, i.e. it's able to buy renewable electricity directly from the supplier. And Google recently signed the first solar power purchase agreement in Tainan City, and TCI, the first Taiwanese company to sign a renewable PPA, did so in 2020. And Taiwan is experiencing an offshore wind revolution with 5.5 gigawatts planned by 25 and 10 gigawatts by 2036. There's no direct purchases from corporates of offshore wind yet, but prices are continuing to fall, and they will reach a price point where it is cheaper to buy renewable electricity from offshore wind and other sources than it is to buy conventional grid electricity. And this is increasingly what is happening around the world. Renewable electricity isn't just the right thing to do, it's also outcompeting fossil fuels on price. Next slide, please. And the voice of business is creating change at policy level. President Tsai of the Taiwanese authorities, in her keynote speech on industrial policy, stated RE100 is a critical consideration for industrial policy. This is recognizing that Taiwan, just like Korea, is a supply economy, and the companies buying from your companies are demanding renewable electricity. And in Japan, the environment minister, pictured here, brought into Japan's COVID stimulus package a $1 billion support for corporate power purchase agreements for on-site renewables. And they did this directly because of the growth of RE100 and the demand from the huge number of Japanese RE100 members, numbering 35, and we will be welcoming more next week. Next slide, please. And my final slide before I hand over to Mukund. The business case for RE100 is growing significantly. The one I want to talk about specifically here is the demand from large corporations of their suppliers. So on the top right, Lisa Jackson from Apple. Proud to say Apple are one of our extremely active members. We're delighted to have them on board. And Apple are asking their suppliers to use 100% renewable electricity for their own products. Josh is on the call, will probably correct me afterwards, but I understand so far 44 Apple suppliers have committed to 100% renewable electricity for Apple products. British Telecom, BT, is also asking their suppliers to use 100% renewable electricity, again, another RE100 member. And this is having an impact on supply economies. We have a quote here from Japanese company Askel, who joined RE100 18 months ago. They have noticed growth in custom due to their commitment to 100% renewable electricity. This is getting them noticed by potential buyers of their products who want to source from green companies, and RE100 is their stamp of approval. And to quote their president here, declaring their intentions has become their passport to the world. So very important, not just for saving money once the renewables reach price parity and below, but also very important for securing trade. So on that note, I'm going to hand over to Mukund. Next slide, please. Shall I continue the slide while Mukund sorts out while the technical problems sort out? I'll continue to present. So the reasons for the drivers for renewable electricity, every year we ask our members why they joined RE100 and why they're buying renewable electricity. And every year the responses change slightly. You'll see here the top three issues are management of greenhouse gas emissions, which is expected, corporate social responsibility, which is expected. But less expected is customer expectations and cost savings, which are rapidly becoming more important for companies. And I've already covered previously the customer expectation. Cost savings may come as a surprise in Korea, where renewables are perceived as very expensive. But the cost of wind and solar have dropped by around 70% and 44% respectively over the past 7 years, which means that in many places they are cheaper. It is cheaper to produce electricity from renewables than it is from coal. And this is in places such as the UK. This is places such as the Netherlands, the USA. This is not just incredibly sunny countries and incredibly windy countries. It's happening around the world. And in more countries than not, it is cheaper to use renewables. The only thing that is in the way is the market design that prevents competition from reducing prices. Next slide, please. So what are the barriers? What is preventing companies from buying renewables? Well, the cost of renewable electricity is still an issue. This is not the inherent cost of renewables. I think I'm always struck by the irony when I visit Korea. You make some of the best solar panels, batteries, and electronic equipment in the world, and yet it is more expensive to generate solar power from Korean equipment in Korea than it is to use that to generate renewable electricity from that same equipment in Europe or USA. The reason for that is policy. And the second, market structures, the second biggest barrier to use of renewable electricity, and lack of necessary government support. And it's important to state here that companies are not generally looking for subsidy. What they're looking for is a fair market that allows renewables to be sold at a fair price on a level playing field. The next slide, please. And this message was heard loud and clear in Europe, and I think this is a great case study that shows the power of the 100% commitment. In 2017, several RE100 members participated in policy advocacy activities in Europe to advocate for the adoption of ambitious post-2020 clean energy rules, with a particular focus on the Renewable Energy Directive. And you can see here the meeting with a number of RE100 members whose logos are shown, with the European Commission and the European members of the European Parliament. And what did this achieve? Well, we achieved the removal of all barriers to a requirement for all countries in Europe to remove barriers to power purchase agreements, i.e. to allow the fair direct sale of renewable electricity. And we also secured agreements on guarantees of origin to ensure there was consistency across the European market. Why could we achieve this? Well, first of all, we were told by the Commission that a pivotal factor was the fact that these companies really meant business. They were coming to the table saying, we are committed to 100% renewable electricity. They were taken very, very seriously. Secondly, the investment that involves at the time was around $94 billion in potential investment in renewable electricity. And what policymaker would not be delighted if companies said, hey, we would like to invest $94 billion in your energy system over the next couple of decades. It's a win-win proposition for the companies, for the policymakers, and for the environment. So the next slide, please. Corporate leadership is, of course, multifaceted. It is not just about a race to 100%. I won't go through the full detail of this slide, but you can find our leadership report on our website, RE100.org. The ambition to achieve 100% is only part of the story. And many of our members are showing leadership by engaging with policymakers, suppliers, and other platforms, and looking at the way they can buy renewable electricity in the most effective way. So it's not just about ticking the box of 100% renewable electricity. Companies are actively trying to change the markets in which they operate for their own benefit, but also for the benefit of wider society. And we're seeing this particularly in Japan, where the 35 RE100 members are not only striving to secure renewables for their own operations, they're looking to create that broader policy change to ensure that cheap renewables are accessible to all Japanese business. So this is about creating change, not just about ticking a box of 100% renewable electricity. And I think it's important to say change takes time. We don't expect companies in places like Korea, Japan, Taiwan to be achieving 100% tomorrow. We expect we expect that will take time, and 2050 is a perfectly reasonable target to be set. There's a lot of work to be done, but we need hero companies to step up and start that work. Next slide, please. So this is my final slide almost. RE100 is setting up local hubs in a number of countries where we work with local organizations to help to drive the movement forward. And we are delighted to be working with KSNRE in Korea, and of course our global partner CDP, represented by COSIF, and also working alongside other organizations such as WWF, who are providing important work, supporting companies who want to become RE100 members around the world. So we are ramping up that support in Korea, and we hopefully I will get to meet some of you again when this pandemic is over, as we strengthen our work to help you to achieve that RE100 goal. The next slide, please. So the final slide before we finish, we will be holding a members meeting at Climate Week on the 22nd of September. Climate Week this week will be held virtually, but brings together high-level policymakers. We're hoping to bring together virtually we hope 250 RE100 members by that point. And we will be holding some RE100 Leadership Awards, where we'll be rewarding the companies that are going further, faster, and really creating change in renewable electricity markets. Next slide, please. So thank you very much for your attention, and thank you to the translators for making me understandable.